Welcome to Speak Easy English. Today's story is about hunger, love, family, and the power of sharing. In a small village on the edge of a dry plain, there lived two brothers named Ram and Sham. They were orphans. Their mother and father had died when they were young, and since that day, the two brothers had taken care of each other. Ram, the elder, was tall and quiet. Sham, the younger, was small and cheerful. They had very little in the world, only a tiny mud house, a small field behind it, and each other. But they loved one another more than anything, and so they were never truly poor. The two brothers worked their little field together. They grew wheat, and in good years the field gave them just enough to live on. They shared everything equally, always. If they had 2 mangoes, each took one. If they had 1 blanket on a cold night, they shared it between them. "What is mine is yours," Ram often said. "And what is mine is yours," Sham always answered, laughing. But then came a terrible year. The rains did not fall. The sun burned the land week after week, and the little field gave almost nothing. The wheat grew thin and dry. By the time the brothers gathered their small harvest, there was barely any grain at all. They ground what little they had into flour, and from that flour they could make only a few loaves of bread. They knew that this small amount must last them through many hard weeks until they could plant again. Hunger had come to live in their little house. The brothers rationed their bread carefully. A small piece in the morning, a small piece at night. Their stomachs were never full. They grew thin, and their cheeks grew hollow. And at last, one evening, they came to the end. There was only enough flour left to make one final loaf of bread. 1 loaf, and then nothing. That evening, Ram baked the last loaf over the small fire. The smell of the warm bread filled the tiny house, and both brothers' empty stomachs ached. Ram divided the loaf carefully into 2 equal halves, just as they had always done. They each ate their half slowly, making it last. And then they lay down to sleep, both of them knowing that tomorrow there would be nothing left to eat at all. But neither brother could sleep that night. Each lay in the darkness, thinking, not about his own hunger, but about his brother's. Ram, the elder, lay awake and thought, "My poor little brother Sham. He is younger and smaller than me. He needs his strength more than I do. Tomorrow we will have nothing. I am the elder. It is my duty to protect him. I cannot let him starve. I saved a small piece of my bread from tonight. I will quietly put it on his side, so that tomorrow he has a little more than me. He must not know, or he will refuse it." And so, in the deep of the night, Ram rose silently from his mat. He had wrapped a small piece of his own bread in a cloth, saved from his half. As quietly as he could, he crept across the dark room to where his brother slept, and he gently placed the bread beside Sham's sleeping head. Then he crept back to his own mat and lay down, feeling at peace, and finally he fell asleep. But on the other side of the room, Sham had been lying awake too, thinking the very same thoughts about his brother. "My poor elder brother Ram," Sham had thought. "He works so much harder than I do. He carries the heaviest loads in the field. He gives me the bigger blanket on cold nights and pretends he is not cold. He has taken care of me my whole life since our parents died. Tomorrow we will have nothing. He needs his strength more than I do, for he does the hardest work. I cannot let him grow weak. I saved a small piece of my bread tonight. I will quietly put it on his side, so that tomorrow he has a little more than me. He must not know, or he will refuse it." And so Sham, too, had wrapped a small piece of his own bread in a cloth. A little while after he heard his brother's breathing grow slow and deep, Sham rose silently in the darkness. As quietly as a shadow, he crept across the room to where Ram slept, and he gently placed his small piece of bread beside his brother's head. Then he crept back to his own mat, feeling happy and at peace, and he too fell asleep at last. When the morning sun rose over the dry plain, the two brothers woke. And both of them sat up at the same moment, confused. For beside Ram's head lay a small piece of bread wrapped in cloth. And beside Sham's head lay a small piece of bread wrapped in cloth. For a moment, neither brother understood. Ram stared at the bread next to his own head. But I gave my piece to Sham in the night, he thought. How is there bread beside me? And Sham stared at the bread next to his own head, equally puzzled. But I gave my piece to Ram, he thought. How is there bread beside me? Then, slowly, the truth dawned on both of them at once. Ram looked at Sham. Sham looked at Ram. And in that instant, each understood what the other had done. In the dead of night, while one brother slept, the other had crept across the room to give away his own last bread. And while that brother crept back, the first had already done the very same thing. Each had tried, in secret, to give his food to the other. Each had thought only of his brother's hunger, and not his own. The two brothers looked at the two pieces of bread, and then they looked into each other's eyes, and tears began to roll down their thin cheeks. They did not say a word, for no words were needed. Ram opened his arms, and Sham ran into them. And the two brothers held each other tightly and wept. In the middle of their tiny, empty house. With nothing left in the world but two small pieces of bread and a love that no hunger could ever break. You gave me your bread, whispered Sham. And you gave me yours, whispered Ram. You foolish, wonderful boy. They laughed and cried at the same time. And then, together, they sat down and shared the two pieces of bread between them, equally, just as they had shared everything their whole lives. And though their stomachs were still hungry, their hearts were so full of love that, for that one morning, they hardly felt the hunger at all. Now, it is said that an old holy man had been passing through the village very early that morning. Looking for shelter, he had paused near the brothers' little house, and through the open window he had quietly seen everything. He had seen Ram place his bread beside his sleeping brother. He had seen Sham do the very same. He had seen the brothers wake and understand and weep in each other's arms. And the old holy man, who had traveled the whole world and seen kings and palaces and great riches, said softly to himself, "In all my many years, I have never seen anything so beautiful as this. Here, in this poorest of houses, where two starving brothers each tried to give the other his last piece of bread, here is the richest love on all the earth." The holy man knocked gently on their door. The brothers welcomed him in, and though they had almost nothing, they offered to share what little bread remained. The old man's heart was moved beyond words by their kindness. He blessed the two brothers from the depths of his soul. "Children," he said, "a love like yours is rarer than gold and more precious than any treasure. You have shared with each other even your very last bread. I promise you this, brothers who love like this will never truly be lost, and they will never truly go hungry for long." And the old man's words came true. That very season, the rains finally returned, soft and steady and life-giving. The dry plain turned green again. The brothers' little field, watered by the blessed rain, gave them the richest harvest they had ever known. As the years passed and the brothers rebuilt their modest life, they found that the love which had survived their hardest night grew stronger still in the easier years. 3 seasons after the terrible drought, a neighboring village suffered the same misfortune. The rains bypassed them entirely, and by winter, many families there had run out of grain. When word reached Ram and Sham, they sat together and counted what they had stored. They had more than the year before, but not so much that sharing would be easy. Still, they looked at each other, and neither needed to speak. They loaded half their stores onto a cart and drove it to the neighboring village. Some people in their own village shook their heads. You are giving away what little you have, they said. What if your own crops fail next year? You will be back to starving. But Ram only smiled. We once gave each other our last piece of bread, he said. After that, nothing else feels like too much to give. The people of the neighboring village never forgot the two quiet brothers who came with a full cart when others came with nothing. A year after that, Sham fell ill with a fever that kept him in bed for many weeks, right at the time of the harvest. Without both pairs of hands, the crop would be only half collected before the rains could ruin it. Ram rose before the sun each morning and worked the field alone from first light until the stars came out. He cooked simple food at night, and on the worst nights of Sham's fever, he sat up beside his brother with a wet cloth, cooling his forehead and singing softly the old songs their mother had once sung to them. He told no one how exhausted he was. When neighbors offered help, he thanked them and refused, afraid they could not spare the time from their own harvests. When Sham recovered and understood what Ram had done in those long weeks, and how much of his own strength and sleep it had cost him, he was overwhelmed. You should have told me it was this bad, he said. You should have asked for help, or rested, or done anything but what you did. Ram shrugged with the ease of a man who does not think he has done anything unusual. You were not well. There was nothing to tell. Sham looked at his elder brother for a long time. He understood then that their love was not a thing that lived only in the dramatic moments of crisis, but something ordinary and daily, a quiet practice of putting the other first that had become, over all the years, as natural to both of them as breathing. And in the years that followed, Ram and Sham worked side by side, and they prospered, and they were never hungry again. But of all the good things that came to them in their long lives, the brothers never forgot that one terrible, beautiful morning, when they had nothing left but one loaf of bread and the discovery that each loved the other more than he loved himself. They told the story to their children, and their children told it to theirs, so that the love of the two brothers would never be forgotten. And that is the story of the two brothers and one loaf of bread. A story that reminds us that true sharing is not giving away what we do not need, but giving away even what we need ourselves, for the sake of someone we love. And where there is love like that, no one is ever truly poor.